NWA is going live January 31st for NWA Powerrr. This is huge because only recently, like NWA has been doing live pay-per-views. Powerrr have been tapings, about 6 to 8 weeks of taping. So if you were there live, you technically could spoil what happened. But this live event is a huge moment for NWA. How's everyone feeling about this?
Oh my gosh, it is a huge moment, and I'm glad that you put so much emphasis behind it because, like you said, we've been doing live pay-per-views, maybe for a year or around that amount, and then the television tapings, right? But now we have an opportunity to provide our product live that's not gated behind a paywall, right? To give fans a reason to want to tune into the pay-per-view live. So, I would be saying to expect the best out of the NWA for this 31st because we're all going to be pulling out the stops. We want to give you guys a reason to tune in every week. And so I hope this isn't the last live Powerrr either. I think it's the first of many to come.
Yeah, I talked to Billy Corgan. I think it was like a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago now, and we talked about it. And he says this is the kind of like the beginning, the birth of having more live powers, but also adding more pay-per-views to NWA. Because if you have 8 weeks of tapings and you only have 4 or 5 pay-per-views, well, that's a lot of tapings in between. It reminds me of the golden era of the WWF where you had Rumble, Mania, SummerSlam, Survivor Series. Well, those were just taped
Right.
months ahead of time. So NWA having more live events, I think, just keeps, he said it as well, keeps everything fresher, more marketable, because you can't really change your opinion after you do 8 weeks of tapings and go, this isn't working. Well, we already taped it, so we have to air this.
Exactly. And things change. You know what I mean? The wrestling industry, as we've all found out over the last 2 years, if we haven't known already, it has been wild. You know what I mean? It has been a wild time to be a reporter, to be a podcaster, to be a wrestler. Every day it seems like there's some new breaking news that just somehow usurps what just came out the other day. And so
Yes.
live television, we can keep track of that and we can change on a dime. Whereas like you mentioned, if we write it into television, well, that's the program for the next 8 weeks.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Regardless if your performer gets hurt in the meantime or public perception on that person changes, right? Something happens, they do something unsavory. It's like, well, now what do we do?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot that goes into that. And so I think that going to do more pay-per-views, more live shows also gives people more of a reason to want to tune in that day versus like, oh, I'll catch up on Power when it, after a couple episodes air.
Yeah, yeah. And I talked to Billy about this as well, and I want your perspective is the Fight TV deal is over, or at least for Powerrr it is.
Mhm.
YouTube will air now Powerrr. And I think that's where you go back before COVID, where everyone was falling in love with NWA. They're like, oh, what is this? It's fresh, it's different, it feels old, but it feels new. And then COVID happened, and it really, I think, not just NWA, it derailed so many plans for so many different organizations, big ones, small ones, everybody. So, like, how was that process, you think, coming out of COVID? And now it's kind of like restarting the engines of NWA the past year and a half. And I think it's been doing a hell of a job kind of focusing on storylines and a little bit of different, I guess, ways to look at wrestling.
Sure, I think it kind of goes back to the NWA and its value proposition, right? I just had a conversation with somebody else the other day, and we were talking about how the NWA is different in that sense, right? We do a lot of different and unique things, and so it attracts a different type of audience as well. For the typical casual fan, are they watching Monday Night Raw? Are they watching Friday Night SmackDown? I don't know, probably, but they're at least following the product, right? Same with
Mhm.
AEW. They're watching the product. Are they watching it every night? I don't know, but they're at least following the product. With the NWA, I love our partners at Fight, but sometimes it can be hard to reach that mass audience by putting it behind an app that, quite frankly, some people are going to have to download and they're not familiar with. So
Mhm.
moving it back to YouTube, you're going to have a broader audience. We're going to be able to capture more people. And especially if we're going to be doing Power Live, then that's a twofold slam dunk in my opinion. But I think, like you said, pre-COVID, that's where we got a lot of that traction, and so hopefully we get some of that traction back because the NWA is doing different things, and so you want to change from the mainstream players. Well, we're one too, but we do things a little different here.
Yeah. And recently, I'll say it one more time. I recently did an interview with Billy Corgan about NWA, and he said that NWA's audience has grown 500%. And that was the article headline for a lot of the conversation. And the negativity uh, for random moments that make no sense at all. It's really choosing on like you don't like somebody because of whatever reason in the world, not because they're a promoter or they're a wrestler. This was like personal,
Right.
and
Right.
I'm very happy the NWA Women's Champion Camille stepped forward. I talked to her recently as well, and she was like, "This is so full of hate. Like, why do you want a company to shut down
Mhm.
wrestlers, production, referees? This isn't just a oh I don't like that wrestler. This was like very I want this to go under for no reason at all. How do you see this? Are you aware of this? That there is some people on Twitter, which again, Twitter is not the everybody, and it's not like everyone shows up with their app to NWA. It's like, oh, see, I said, see, I was one of them who said this. Like, are you aware that
Right.
there is this like weird underlining to NWA of people trying to be negative about it and like really can't find reasons?
I think the best example of that was coming out of Hard Times 3. That was a big moment for me personally because, again, I won that NWA World Television Championship at
Mhm.
that pay per view. But if you follow the product or you were on Twitter, the day prior or the days prior, you saw a lot of negativity come towards the
Mhm.
NWA, right? A lot of negativity for the booking, what they consider the booking decisions, or whoever was holding the title, whether it
Yeah.
be personal, which I feel a lot of it was personal and political, albeit or professional, like you just don't like the product. But I chalk it up to this, Steve. When I was 9 years old and I was watching Monday Night Raw, they changed the theme song from Papa Roach to like Nickelback. I don't know if you remember back in like, I don't know, maybe this was 2009. And I wrote the strongest worded email to Vince McMahon and I said, I'm not watching. You've lost my business. I'm out of here.
Of
I
course.
was 9 years old. Right. And
Wow.
so I think that that type of hatred kind of translates over to, especially to the Twitter space. But, more importantly, I think for me, looking at the NWA and looking at the heat or the backlash that some of the stuff has gotten online, you say, well, what's a positive out of this?
Mm.
Hey, bad PR is better than no PR, and at least people are talking NWA. And I have never seen the NWA hashtag added more in my career, especially prior to COVID and after the COVID, even when I wasn't a part of the program, than they do now. So I say bring on the hate. Half of them aren't watching the product anyway. So, maybe it'll drive someone to say, what is everyone talking so poorly about? And then they'll tune into that live power and think, man, this is something I need to watch.
Oh my God, are you a life coach? That was amazing. It's truly something amazing that you took this negative of what people were saying and you twisted it because you're right. Someone's like, well, why are they people hashtagging this so often? Well, first off, it's good. That's one way. The second one
Yes.
is the hate watchers or the hate or they're reading a headline and they're like, oh, okay. Like sometimes I'll get done with an interview, great interview, could go on for an hour and a half. They the things I think were great will not be great to somebody else. It's going to be like that
Sure.
one little thing they accidentally said or positioned in the wrong way. And I hope this interview does not turn out that way because
Knock on wood, right?
not gonna win. Also, though NWA Nuff said is coming up the pay per view February 11th. This is huge because again, this is part of the brand new year of 2023 with Tyrus as champion heading into the event, and this is just exciting stuff because pay-per-views right now it feels like everybody wants more wrestling. There isn't this like oh, I don't
Yes.
I'm not no, it's like going to a buffet. You want everything from everyone at every angle. If you're into it, you are into it. Like what do
Yes.
you think fans are expecting to see at this Nuff said pay-per-view on February 11th?
That wrestling, for the record, we spoke about the golden era, or you mentioned the golden era a little bit ago.
Yeah.
I think we're in a new resurgence for professional wrestling. I mean, these last several years, you've seen more and more traction, more companies pop up, and the forbidden door, as it hasn't been said enough, has been swinging open left and right. So, there's a lot of demand for the product, and that's good for the NWA. And I think they're looking for this year to start off with a bang. But, don't be surprised if we're really laying the groundwork for something special, right? It takes time to tell stories. And that's one thing about the NWA is that you need to be invested in the storylines. And I think that we'll offer that through Enough Said, but we're going to lay the groundwork for something that you're going to want to watch on a regular basis
Mm.
rather than, coming to watch a mega card. Sure, you get to see all your favorites, big name matches. Well, I think storytelling is kind of lost art in professional wrestling. And that's something that the NWA is going to try to accomplish. And I think we're going to start doing that. Enough Said.
I can't wait. I agree with you 100%. Like, how many fantasy matches can you have without a story? Like,
Exactly.
oh, whoa, these two wrestlers who I really like are fighting. That's great. But why are they fighting? Isn't that the reason? Because I want to be better than you. That's the story. I want to be better than you. Isn't that
Exactly.
everyone? Isn't that everyone?
If
Like I
right,
was like
it's
back in the day, the purse money. They were talking about Bobby Heenan would be like, the purse money. You need to win the purse
yes.
money. Yes, because what are we all doing here? Like what? Why are we showing up at this place and fighting each other in a ring? Why?